Hi, welcome back to another episode of Terrorvision with Justin.
Oh, is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
Well, no, because
Oh,
I'm Alex.
wait. I don't even know what's good. We've been away for quite a minute,
Yeah, a couple months.
couple months per se.
We had a few podcasts that we recorded, and I finally got around to editing them. Just been so busy with like work and stuff, but I went around to edit one, and we were like, yeah, so Halloween's just right around. We're recording on Halloween. Thanksgiving is in blah blah blah, and I was like, fuck, it's January.
I know, right? Holidays have been so fucking busy for us.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
More or less, we're glad to be back, and now we're hoping to bring you guys more content and hopefully more specials
We'll
in the
see.
future.
We tried to put together a schedule, so we're gonna try to stick to that schedule and see if it works. We
Yes,
might get
sir.
a podcast out every month, ideally.
Hell yeah.
So yeah.
That's what's up. So the movie that we're diving into today is The Exorcist Believer.
Yeah. We literally just we're hot out of watching it. Not 15 minutes ago the credits rolled.
Before we get into this episode is brought to you by the Bible.
Yeah. Big
I like to say
big
a
sponsor,
prayer before going into
Jesus
these
Christ.
episodes. Literally.
No, but let's jump into it, man.
This-
If I had to give like a quick sentence long review, I would say this was a good 5 out of 10 for me. Maybe
Right.
a 6.
It's a lot of mixed feelings for this movie, honestly.
Right. I feel like ultimately everything about the movie was more or less well done, save for like the writing, but the cinematography was fine. The directing and the delivery of all the actors, that was all good. The music was good. I didn't really like the audio. They do that audio design thing where everything in the movie is loud as fuck except for the characters when they're talking. So it's like you'll be trying to like listen in on what the characters are saying, and then it'll just...
We had a constant turn up and down the volume
Right.
while watching this movie because we couldn't understand a goddamn word most of these characters were saying.
Right, and well, it was for cheap scares, especially in the first half, where we would try to listen in on what the characters were saying, and then it would jump cut to like a fucking lawnmower or something just to transition the scene. And it's like, was that necessary? Or like the scene where he's pulling the trash can up the driveway.
Yeah.
It's so loud, and there's nothing happening. He's just pulling it up the drive. Like, is that really necessary?
Right.
I don't know. I get it's for tension, but like it's annoying to me when I'm trying to listen to what people are saying, and then it's like, we gotcha. We gotcha, didn't we? And I'm like, not really, guys.
Yeah, well, before we dive more too deep into this movie, I just want to give a couple quick
Brief
facts.
overview.
Yeah, a little brief overview of this movie. It's a 2023 horror crime movie. That's what it's listed as, a horror crime, which I could see a
Really?
crime aspect of it, which they went missing for just like
We're gonna
20
pursue
minutes
legal
of the...
charges against Satan.
It's a 2 hour and 1 minute film. The director was David Gordon Green. Reviews for this movie is pretty much how our mixed feelings are about it, because IMDb gave it a 4.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 22%.
Yeah, honest, I feel it. The thing with this movie is that the original Exorcist movie was groundbreaking in a lot of ways. It was
Right.
groundbreaking in what kind of explicit content could be shown in a horror movie. It was groundbreaking in the effects that they used for Reagan and the possession. It was groundbreaking in the way that it ended. You know, I mean, spoiler if you haven't seen original Exorcist, but it ends with the Exorcist doesn't do fuck all.
Really big spoiler alert
Right,
from a
the-
movie that's been since out from the 80s.
The priest that's actually doing the exorcist dies. He doesn't do the exorcism. The way it pans out is the priest takes the demon into himself and then commits suicide. And he in a exorcist lore, he doesn't really die, but we're not going to think about that. It's fine. But I mean, this movie kind of does away with that in the sense that, again, the exorcism doesn't work, but I feel like the ending here was also just kind of a cop-out. But before we get to the ending, we should go over just kind of a brief synopsis of the But to put it very briefly, I don't want to take up the whole runtime with the summary, but to put it briefly, we follow this father. He's kind of the main character, and early on in the film, we're shown that his wife is pregnant, and that some witches do some witchcraft on her, I guess,
Right.
and the Haiti earthquake happens, and she's injured, and he has to make this decision between whether he saves the child or whether he saves the mom, because medical complications. I'm not a doctor, and we're led to believe that he chooses the child, and we're kind of jump cutted to I don't know, like 14, 15 years later. She's kind of a teenager, yeah. And essentially what happens is she and her friend they wander off into the woods to try to speak with her dead mom through some sort of spell or whatever they're doing.
Kind of like witchcraft.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff.
It's the typical vague horror trope of, oh, they're doing something not Christian, so it's opening a doorway to a demon.
Right.
And of course that's what happens, and is the girls are missing for a second, and when they find them, they're kind of fucked up. And we could go into detail about all the specifics, but it's not much different than the original Exorcist movie. You know, they say some sexually provocative things. There's a little bit of gore. It's more or less a retread of the original movie. There weren't a whole lot of scenes in there that felt original.
I was gonna say the makeup and a lot of the effects and the voice of the demon were very similar to the original,
and it was well done too.
It was very well done.
It was the framing and the makeup and the direction and the voice act. It was all very well done. I mean, it's not a bad movie that you're gonna watch and be like, oh, what the fuck, like. But it feels also like a very heartless movie in the sense that I've seen this before. It
could have been better. It could have more like effort into it, but
and especially with the so in this movie the girl goes wandering off with her friend, and they both get possessed, and that's one of the main differences of this movie, is that there are two girls that are possessed by demons.
Right.
And I feel like they could have done a lot more with that, but they don't really do anything interesting with that idea of having two girls possessed at the same time. They just kind of mess with their respective families for a little bit until their families ultimately come to the conclusion that they need an exorcism and try it.
Right.
You know? They do dive into kind of a subplot where they reconnect with Chris Reagan, who's the mom from the original movie.
Yes.
Because she wrote a book in the universe about her experiences, and so they go to her for some counseling. And she doesn't really play a huge role in this movie. She kind of leads them more down the road of needing an exorcism. But she gets her fucking eyes gouged out like 10 minutes after that.
I love how they only gave her like 20 minutes of screen time, and then they not necessarily kill her off right away, but
just get her out of the story.
Yeah.
And I will
like
say,
now she's just the blind woman.
I will say that scene where the possessed girl gouges out her eyes was really cool. Like, it was a really cool scene, I'll be honest. That had me on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh fuck, that's actually really cool.
Threw me off like, pretty hardcore.
But yeah, they don't really use her a whole lot, and once they kind of go down that route of, oh, we need an exorcism, it's kind of just going to set it up. One thing that is cool is they approach more cultural forms of exorcism. There's a heavy emphasis on this movie of the idea of an exorcism not necessarily being a Christian thing, but more of a like multicultural thing. So they bring in like a priest, and they bring in a woman who's more well versed in witchcraft and some other things, and they're kind of researching other stuff, which is a cool aspect that I think they could have dived into a little bit more.
Right.
It's kind of surface level on the idea. The main theme of this movie is people and us being together, I guess. It felt very Sesame Street. But yeah, I mean, it's not much more. It's very surface level on that theme of like, oh, we're bringing people together, so we're going to have a guy who's Christian and a girl who's not Christian, and then this guy who's kind of on the fence about it all, and it doesn't go much deeper than that.
Right.
But ultimately, they come to the final sequence where the girls are, they're trying to do the exorcism fails, and the demon essentially tells everyone that they have to choose one of the girls to live or die. And during this part, he's trying to, I referenced the demon, but the girls, they're trying to divide the group, and they're trying to get them to turn on each other and saying a bunch of shit and revealing stuff about each other. And the main character's daughter, one of the possessed girls, she reveals that he actually picked the mom way back when she was
Yeah,
injured and
that was a
pregnant,
pretty heavy twist.
and he didn't choose the kid. And to me, that was a really cool twist. I'm going to
It
be
was a
honest. That was
really big twist.
it
of
was
the movie.
set up very well. It was executed very well. The payoff was cool. We were both sitting on our seats like, holy
Yeah.
shit, what he
No, that
actually,
caught me off so fucking.
right.
I
It was a
just-
good
wow.
twist. But immediately once that happened, I kind of had the thought of, oh, well, so the demon likes to give you the choice like he's doing now, and he's a demon, so he's going to trick you, and he's going to do the opposite of what you say, of course.
Right.
And it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen Gotham. It reminds me of an episode of Gotham. Gotham's it's a Batman spinoff show
Right.
before Batman, and it focuses on
Yeah,
Jim
I've
Gordon,
seen
the
a
cop.
couple episodes of it.
And there's an episode where one of the villains, I forget who, but one of the villains kidnaps his like current girlfriend, the like woman that he loves, and his like ex-wife, and essentially makes him choose and is like, you got to pick one. I'm going to kill one of them. And what ends up happening is he knows that this guy is going to trick him and kill the opposite one that he says. So he picks his ex-wife on purpose so that she's the one that gets got and that his current girlfriend is the one that's fine.
Right.
And they reveal that a little bit later on in the episode that he was like, no, I did that on purpose. But anyways, it was an interesting twist because she was like, well, you didn't pick me. Like, what the fuck? So it was kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But anyways, having seen that, it kind of led me on that track of like, oh, the demon's kind of doing this same thing of like, I like to give you choices, but it's not going to be the outcome that you want.
Right.
And so everyone is like, we're not going to choose, and they're trying to figure things out. But ultimately, the dad of the other daughter chooses his daughter.
So
and
stupidly.
It
I
was
was
a really
so
dumb
pissed off
decision.
at that scene.
Yeah, it made it.
I had a feeling he was going to do something fucking dumb in this
Yeah,
movie.
it's one of those horror things that you can kind of see coming, and is just like, yeah, that was bound to happen. So he picks his daughter, and in the twist, more or less, their daughter dies, and the main character's daughter goes free, and that's kind of where the movie ends, man. I mean, there's a little sequence where Reagan gets visited by Chris, her daughter, in the hospital.
Or Reagan visits her.
Excuse me,
mom.
yes,
Yeah.
Reagan visits Chris in the hospital.
Which was a really that was such an awesome scene. I was
I'm-
like on the edge of my seat. I was like, yes,
I'm
finally.
going to disagree with you on that. I didn't like that scene.
I loved it, dude.
It
was cool to see her in the movie though.
Well, so my thing with that is that Chris didn't really do anything in the movie. The characters were already kind of on the trail of going down the exorcism route.
Right.
She just kind of helped nudge them along in that sequence, and then they just kind of ripped her out of the movie. And again, her scenes are all really cool. She delivers her lines well. She's very good. The cinematography is good. The dialogue is okay. And the scene where she gets her eyes gouged out is really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't shake the feeling that there was no reason for her to be in this movie. Like, if
Right.
you took her out of the movie, it would play out exactly the same. It would be fine. And then on top, with that feeling already in me, with with Reagan showing up, I was just like, this is just fan service to get people in the seats. You know, like, and
Like
I
me.
get it. You know, that's not inherently a bad thing, but it was just kind of like them. It felt like they were jangling keys in front of my face, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Hey, you remember
was-
Exorcist 1?" And I was
After
like, yes, I
watching this
remember.
movie, it just really wasn't needed to have the mom from the original movie to be in this film.
It was cool, but yeah, it didn't add
definitely
anything.
like a really cool thing to see original cast in a newer film, but overall I felt like she wasn't really needed in this movie with the amount of screen time that she had.
No, well, and especially with the other reason that Reagan showing up at the end kind of annoyed me was that they had this whole kind of C plot of what happened to Reagan,
Right.
where even Chris was like, I don't know where my daughter is. I don't know. I haven't heard from her in a while. And when the demon was messing with her, he was like, oh, she's in hell and she's dead and stuff. And, you know, like the demon does. And so that opened a really interesting question of like, well, what did happen to Reagan?
Right.
And that's just not answered, period. She
Yeah,
just
she
shows
just
up
shows
at
up.
the end. And so that's why I was like, okay. So we're just not going to resolve that arc at all. We're
I
just gonna
think
show
it
up
might
for
be
a fan.
referring to the other the other Exorcist films.
Maybe, which I
Of
haven't seen. I've only
possibly,
seen the first and the third.
yeah, I've only seen the first one, so it's probably there's a reference to the second or third one of why she's been away or that she hasn't had contact with her mom. But
So I'm only really familiar with the first three. I've seen the first one and I've seen the third one, and I read the books for both of those.
I've just seen the first one.
I'm vaguely familiar with the second one. I know the second one, Reagan is like one of the main characters, and I know, like
Right.
you said, she's got some freaky powers or some shit.
Yeah, I watched like a clip or something, and it looked like she had some sort of like telekinesis shit.
Right.
But I'm not sure. I need to watch the movie fully.
And then the third one is about, I don't know if you remember the detective who was like trying to help during the case.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there was the detective. He's kind of the main character, and he's investigating some more of these like demonic murders in like a hospital.
Right.
And it turns out, it's been a while since I've seen the third one or read the book, but it's Father Karras still possessed. He's like in the
Right,
institution
yeah.
And stuff, and it's kind of interesting. But yeah, it feels like they're referencing the second one more. But either way, I don't know, man. I had fun watching this movie.
It was a fun movie, but
it's a fun movie to put on and just kick it with your friends. And
but the plot was just kind of just out of the place.
I didn't like the pacing either. The pacing felt like they just kind of, they were like, let's go from one thing to another. I thought the first half of the movie was really well done. I liked the homage to the original Exorcist with the medical horror aspects. I liked that. I'm as uncomfortable as it made me. I liked that scene where the doctors are examining the girls after they went missing, and kind of how overwhelming and evasive the whole thing is.
Right.
And kind of like, I really liked that that aspect of it.
Definitely that second act was pretty overwhelming.
And then
to
the
watch.
second act kind of happened, and they were like, oh well, the doctors don't know what's up, so let's find some other stuff. And they're like, oh, this person's talking about witchcraft, and this person led me to the, and like it just kind of goes, and then there's not really a whole lot of struggle with the possessed girls. In
Right.
Exorcist 1, most of the movie is them dealing with and trying to figure out solutions to it. Whereas this movie is mostly them just trying to figure out solutions and not really dealing with it. There's a handful
Right.
of scenes where the possessed girls kind of mess with them, but more or less they don't really do anything, and then they just tie the girls up to the chairs, and the final sequence happens where they're like, oh, you have to choose, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I just felt underwhelmed watching it, and I went in with kind of low expectations. It was well made. It was well made. You can tell that.
Cinematography, makeup, the soundtrack was actually really cool.
Yeah.
Because I love how they did their own kind of version of the old theme.
It was
Kinda
very
like
reminiscent, but it was new.
Because there was that scene where he was driving to meet the mom after like reading the book and all, like looking up all of her information about how she used to have like past experience with her daughter Reagan with the Exorcist, and him driving out to go visit her, like, you know, meet her, and they incorporated the whole Exorcist theme, but their own kind of like twist on it, and I found that like really interesting.
It's really cool, and you can tell like the people that made this movie are talented people. Yeah. The writing and the pacing and the script is a little iffy, but the people that worked on it are talented, and that shows through in the movie. But just ultimately, you can tell that this was the studio executives being like, oh, let's make another Exorcist movie. Let's do that.
Yeah. I know they're going to make another one to this new movie, because this one's... I read something like an article that they were making 2 parts of this film with The Exorcist Believer. I think the next one's going to be Deceiver, and that might be coming out in 2024. I'm not sure yet, but if they do make a sequel to this movie, I hope they can strictly stay on a better plot and not have it so mixed around so much with this plot and that plot, and then we got to figure out this, and I don't know. It was just...
Yeah, this movie's plot felt a little scattered. It definitely felt like it was a little all over the place with trying to manage too many things. I don't know. I can't say that if they do make a sequel to this that I'll be there waiting for it.
I'll wait for it after when it's out of theater. I don't think I would spend my money going to watch it. But,
I don't even know if I'd watch it for free. You know, man. Like, it's one of those things that, like, yeah, if I've got a day to do nothing and it comes on the TV, like, yeah, I'll watch it. Why not? But
right.
Like, it's probably not like having seen this one, I'm probably not going to go out of my way to watch the next one free or not.
I mean, I would say, I mean, definitely watching Exorcist Believer was definitely a fun movie to watch. Like it was fun and it
Sure,
was cool
sure,
in its
definitely.
ways, but it was lacking a lot of,
Just heart.
yeah, just heart, honestly. Yeah, it just kind of fell in by like the third act, and it just got really mixed, and I don't know, it just kind of fell apart a bit towards the end, and yeah, and I would have to agree with you. It was very confusing to see, you know, Reagan just pop out of nowhere and just be like, "I'm here," and was only there for just like, I don't know, it just a mixed feeling of this movie. But overall, I thought it was cool. It was a cool movie. Um, the budget for this movie was $30 million, and then
Yeah,
I think it grossed about 137 million,
that's
which I'm
fair. That's
surprised
fair. I'd believe that.
because I mean, of course, you're gonna have every horror movie fan who's loved the original Exorcist coming to see this and seeing like how original it would be and whatnot, and seeing original cast. So of course, people are gonna blow their money to see this film. But was it really worth it to blow your money on it?
If they made
Not really.
money to the company, it is. But I mean, ultimately, I'd say that's where that movie falls. Is that it was a fun watch to kick it on a weekend and watch it with the homie with, but
Homie.
it falls into that modern trope of movie of studios being like, oh, we've got the rights to this famous IP that people like. I bet if we make a new one that's similar enough to the old one and we get some of the original characters back, that'll get butts and seats.
Right, exactly. I feel like this movie was just more of a profit than it was than
Yeah.
a movie.
And just in today's day and age, I'm tired of seeing that. Like, it was fun the first couple of times. Fuck, I can't even think of what movies, because every movie's doing that now, where it's the classic return. But
Right. My problem with this movie in particular, and with every horror movie that's been coming out recently, and I'm especially referring to the trailers before they coming out, they overhype the movies so much, and that's what kind of just drags horror today. It's like they make the trailers better than the movie.
yeah, and well, I mean that's kind of
That's
how it is.
Hollywood for you.
That's there's an interesting thing about that, because I don't know if you've seen the new Wonka movie yet, but that movie's a musical.
Right.
No, and so I read a few articles where there were people they were interviewing people who did the marketing for that movie, and they were talking about how they didn't want to reveal that it was a musical in the trailers because musicals don't sell as well.
Right.
So it's this thing of like trailers have kind of become misleading in a way where it's like it's not about showing off this cool new movie that you made. It's about hyping it up and trying to get butts and
Trailers
seats.
just nowadays just give out the plot of the movies before even watching the movie itself.
And that too. Like, what was that? You remember that? I think it was DreamWorks. They made an animated movie with the Kraken girl and the like redhead mermaid who looked like, you know what I mean? Yeah, Raina's over there nodding her head.
Irina.
But yeah, like they just the whole trailer was just the movie where they're like, oh yeah, she's a Kraken, but Krakens get this bad rap, and then this other girl is the beautiful mermaid who's actually evil but get a good rap, and then they just
Right.
show like the whole final fight in like the trailer, and it was like Teenage Kraken or some bullshit like that. Yeah,
But yeah, on my rant of this like trailer shit, I honestly kind of went into watching this movie already knowing like somewhat of what was gonna go on, or like plot wise, because the trailer just kind of just gave too much away. But I mean, overall, the twists and turns in this movie were pretty cool and interesting, and
yeah. I mean, again, it was well
It was a
made. The
fun
twists
movie.
were good. It wasn't a bad movie. It just not innovative or mind blowing or
I
anything.
would give
Just
this
kind of a
movie
fun.
like a good 6.5.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say it was bad, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So,
But
but
anyways, I think we should probably wrap it up here, Justin. What do you
yeah,
think?
man, I'm kind of bummed out with this because I was actually a little excited for this movie, but yet again, the trailer kind of just spoiled the plot for me, and now I'm just kind of deceived. For the audience, give us, your review of what you think
Yeah,
or
let us
thought
know.
about this movie, but
Yell at us
on-
if we're wrong.
yeah, honestly, this movie was just kind of a mix. It was really half and half, but go ahead and like and follow us on Spotify and YouTube at Terrorvision with Justin and Alex. Also, for more updates with our podcast, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Terrorvision Podcast and Terrorvision with Justin and Alex. Special thanks to all the viewers and listeners who have been listening to our podcast. We apologize that we've been a little delayed with our episodes
We'll do
due
better.
to the holidays, but we have a pretty good consistent schedule now. We hope to bring you more this year. And special thanks to Diego Gonzalez for our theme song, as always. Until next time, I'm Justin.
And I'm Alex, guys.
And this is Terrorvision with Justin and Alex.
But take care.